Hey on Wisconsinites, I'm Sarah Hopeful from On Wisconsin on WSUM. We had the opportunity to sit down with Senator Tammy Baldwin, who is the junior senator from Wisconsin. Before making her way to the Senate, Senator Baldwin served in the House of Representatives representing Madison and the 2nd Congressional District. Not only is she the first woman elected to represent Wisconsin, she's also the first openly gay senator in U.S. history. We had the privilege to sit down with Senator Baldwin and ask her about the economy, Wisconsin's environment, and what advice she has for UW students.
Tying into a little bit of the economy in Wisconsin, you have this Made in Wisconsin economy, and I'm wondering if you could just explain that a little bit more for us.
Yeah. So I really think that when we look at how we need to get our economy back at full throttle after this really deep recession that our country experienced, that we have to have a diverse economy, and part of that, in my mind, has to be manufacturing, making things. And, we can have, we've had an increasingly service sector economy, but at some point, if you're not producing products, we're just serving each other in different ways, I think that destabilizes our economy. Now, it used to be that nationally, 20% of our economy was manufacturing, making things. That has eroded significantly in recent years for many, many reasons, but to the point where I think we're at like 9% I can't remember the exact figure nationally. Fortunately, in Wisconsin, it's a little higher than that because we've historically been a manufacturing state, but we've lost some big manufacturers in recent years, including like the General Motors plant in Janesville, Wisconsin, several years ago, where you lose, 1,000 jobs in one fell swoop. So I think that a part of our strategy to rebuild has to be to bring manufacturing back, not exclusively, but to have that be a fair share of our state's economy and our national economy. So I've been working on a bunch of things in Congress to help spur that on, to help, and some of that relates to making sure that in a day of global competition, that other countries are playing by fair rules and not cheating. Because if we don't have a level playing field, it's really hard to compete and win. But if we have a level playing field, I have no doubt that Wisconsin workers will win.
Now, with the Wisconsin economy, this has been something that Governor Scott Walker is always talking about. Now, one question that I know a lot of people have here is, how do you balance this whole economy versus environment situation? And Scott Walker recently granted a lot of leverage to companies to basically undermine Wisconsin's environment, as some people see it, in order to create more jobs. How do you think that can be balanced better in terms of protecting Wisconsin's beautiful tradition of environmentalism and bringing back jobs?
Well, I certainly think we have to be even more creative than we have been about viewing this as not one versus the other. So let's just take air pollution and things like particulate matter and mercury and carbon dioxide and things that escape from smokestacks and boilers, et cetera. There are people who are involved in the research and development and the manufacture of equipment that cleans up smokestacks. So jobs are created if we create greater incentives to say, we can do it, and we can do it even cleaner here in Wisconsin, here in the United States. And frankly, who wouldn't want to be on the cutting edge of those sort of emissions reductions technologies that we will need everywhere in the globe? We do already, but we will increasingly need it. When you have, say, a country like China that's building coal-fired power plant, they're building them to try to respond to their population and their growing energy needs. And we need to have technology that's going to provide an answer to that. At the same time, I think we have to have increased flexibility. And when I say that, what I mean is, let's talk about an industry in Wisconsin where they're impacted by competitors in other countries that don't have environmental protections. So it's going to be cheaper to produce the product in the country where you don't have to make any expenditures to reduce emissions. Well, don't you think we should have some way or mechanism or flexibility to level the playing field? Not to say you don't have to do it, but maybe to have guaranteed loans or lower interest loans to help purchase the equipment to achieve that goal. And I've really been, I think we have to think out of the box of how it can be a win-win where we're creating jobs by getting that cutting-edge technology, producing it here in the United States, and implementing it, but in ways that don't drive businesses under.
So when Barack Obama was a senator back in the day, Jon Stewart asked him a funny question, and we thought we'd pose it to you.
Let me ask you a question, Senator. Who's the worst senator? In your mind, like, let's say you're looking around, and let's say some guy comes in and you're like, oh crap, it's that guy. That guy's terrible. Is there somebody that you just think, man, that guy, he can't even read? Nothing?
They're all they all have their qualities.
Yes.
I think there are a couple guys where you do sort of think, how did you get here exactly?
So that's our question. Who's the worst senator? And are there any people that you walk into and you're like, who is this guy? Like, how did you get here?
Well, I'm going to cheat, of course, in answering this question, but actually say that, among the most controversial, and if you look back, you sort of kind of bow your head a little bit in shame, I could say, is I'm in the same seat that Joseph McCarthy once sat in.
Whoa.
If you think about a Wisconsin senator who, had the inquiries into who's communist and, all of that stuff, that was this Senate seat. Now, I have to, just to revive
it's come a long way.
make you feel a little bit better. Over the last century, there's been 5 people who've held this seat. So fighting Bob La Follette Sr., so Robert M. La Follette Sr., his son, Robert M. La Follette Jr., then McCarthy, then Bill Proxmire, then Herb Kohl, and
Very cool.
We're wondering if you could just tell us, what is some advice that you have for for UW students now?
Remain engaged. So one of the things we're most proud of in Wisconsin, and it actually, I can tie in the last question to this question, that during the La Follette era in Wisconsin, there was a lot of thought on this campus about something called the Wisconsin idea, the idea that the knowledge that comes out of the classroom and the laboratory should inform society at large, but also government. And so things like Social Security came out of economists who were at the UW. Ideas like workers' compensation or unemployment insurance came out of folks who were on this campus. And I love that idea that it isn't just something that's a precious resource for the students who get to be studying here, but it's something that ought to benefit the world, that ought to improve the lives of people well beyond the campus. And so I guess it's almost a commitment that UW students have when they leave, is stay true to the Wisconsin idea and be involved and share what you've gotten while you've been here to make the world a better place.
All right, one last quick question. We just want to know, what are your future plans?
Governor Baldwin? President Baldwin?
I am a legislator. Okay. It's so interesting that they joke about the Senate being this body of 95 wannabe presidents, and I don't count that high of a number of wannabe presidents, but there are certainly some of my colleagues who see the Senate as